Red Glass by Laura Rousseau, Chapter 14. Mi amor is gone. We kissed in the meadow for a long time. I touched the curve of his cheekbones, the muscled ripples of his shoulders, the dip where his hips met his waist. I had the feeling that I'd landed in a lush forest, a miraculous place that I needed to explore, down to every tree hollow and flower petal, because tomorrow it would all be gone. We stayed together until just before dawn, when it grew cold and damp. The chicken woke up and the birds started chirping, threads of the world weaving themselves into a new day. We walked back to the room, hand in hand, and kissed again. After he went to his mattress, I slipped back under the covers, wide awake, still feeling his hand slide over my shoulder as though he were sculpting it. The particular smell of him stayed in my hair, and the taste of his skin, salty and smooth, lingered in my mouth. A short time later, Abuelita got up, then Dika, and then there was motion behind the sheet, and Mr. Lorenzo appeared, and then Angel. I stayed on the mattress and watched him walk by. He wasn't wearing his sunglasses, a small gift to me. I smiled at him, and he smiled back, tired and happy and sad all at once. Within an hour, we were in the kitchen, sipping coffee, hovering over a tattered map spread out on the table. Mexico was a giant white funnel that curved to the east and narrowed at Oaxaca, then widened again in Chiapas. After Chiapas came Guatemala, the pale yellow of summer squash. Mr. Lorenzo moved his thick, soil-covered finger from Huajuapan along a black line down to Oaxaca City, then farther south toward the blue Pacific Ocean and along the coast to Tapachula, the border town. "We'll catch a pickup truck to Huajuapan later this morning," he said. "Then we'll have lunch and buy food for the ride and then take the evening bus. That way we'll get there the next morning so we can cross the border in daylight." I glanced up from the map. "Why does that matter?" Mr. Lorenzo cleared his throat and kept staring at the map. Well, just a precaution. It's safer in the day. Not as many bus jackings." "Bus jackings?" Dika cried. "We'll be fine, mi amor. During the daylight, it's safe, more or less." Dika did not look convinced. Mr. Lorenzo patted her knee, then moved his finger from Tapachula farther down across the beige borderline. "Next, we cross into Guatemala and take a few local buses to here." He pointed to a space empty of marked roads, not far from the border, near a place called Tecumuman. "Here is San Juan," he said, "our town." I saw nothing but yellow space, and for some reason this made my stomach tighten. I looked at Angel. He was sitting with Pablo on his lap, whispering to him and staring at me, but I couldn't make out what he was saying. I don't see any town there," I said. Mr. Lorenzo shrugged. "Our town is not big enough for this map." "But how will you know where to go?" My voice sounded suddenly shrill, as though Dika had possessed me. "I mean, what if the roads have changed?" "We'll ask people," he said. "No problem." He took Dika's pudgy hand in his. Her nails were candy purple, like grape-flavored bubble gum. She must have brought along a collection of nail polish. I was sure that yesterday her nails had been sparkly pink. "And then, 1 week later," Mr. Lorenzo continued with a grin, "I will come back to my girlfriend." He gazed at Dika, and she clung to him like a heroine on the cover of a cheesy romance novel. None of us ate much at breakfast. The beans and tortillas and salsa felt stuck in my throat. And next thing I knew, the pickup truck was rumbling up the road, and we were running out with Angel and Mr. Lorenzo and their bags, flagging it down. The truck idled in a cloud of dust while Mr. Lorenzo kissed Dika goodbye and climbed on with his suitcase. Then Angel pulled me to him and planted a long kiss on my lips right in front of everyone. For a moment, he looked hard into my eyes, and I looked back. Then he gave Pablo a hug and hopped into the back of the truck with his backpack and duffel bag. The truck pulled away in a puff of exhaust. Dika patted me on the cheek. "Ha! Finally! You take my advice!" I didn't tell her it was too late. Instead, I said I was taking a walk to the stream, and I managed to hold back the tears until I was out of sight. I headed into the patch of woods where Pablo had said the spirit people live, the duendes. I was glad the duendes wouldn't let anyone cut down these trees. The light filtered through the leaves, making wavy patterns on the ground. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught flashes of light dancing like spirits. At the stream, reflections bounced off the water onto the undersides of fallen trees and branches, leaves and water and light moving, never the same from one moment to the next. I took off my shoes and stepped from rock to rock. They were solid and cool beneath my feet, and the rhythm comforted me somehow, the focus on taking one step after another. Then Pablo appeared. He must have followed me. I wiped the tears off my face and hoped it wasn't too blotchy. "Estás triste, Sophie?" Pablo asked. "Are you sad?" "Sí, Principito, I'm sad." "But you shouldn't be sad." "Why?" "Because Angel told me to take care of you and make sure you're not sad." "Well, that's a big responsibility for a little boy." "He said if I take care of you, he'll bring me a slingshot and show me how to shoot lizards, and we can make lizard tacos." I felt angry that Angel would get Pablo's hopes up, making a promise he didn't plan to fulfill. But then a flicker of hope. When did he say he'd be back? 1 week. When did he tell you about the present? Right before he left on the bus? When he hugged me? Maybe he'd changed his mind. Maybe he was coming back. I would have a long week ahead. "Sophie?" "Yeah? Will you read me a poem?" Dika was melodramatic about Mr. Lorenzo's being gone. Still, she had no doubt he would come back. She knew he was hopeless and helpless as a devoted puppy without her. "Oh!" she cried every few minutes, placing her hand theatrically over her giant bosom. "Oh, mi amor is gone. Oh, I feel lonely. Oh, I miss him." I stayed at a quiet distance from everyone else. I stripped the corn cobs, fed chickens, made tortillas, all with barely a word. Whenever following the moon came on, my eyes got watery, and I walked up the path past the outhouse to a clump of white bell-shaped flowers that Abuelita called Reina de la Noche, Queen of the Night, and looked over the valley. Once on the trail above the outhouse, I nearly tripped over Nola. Her eyes were open. Usually she laughed when I almost stepped on her, but this time she looked at me with her clouded eyes and said something in Mixteco. She repeated it over and over. "Kua nande kuve." She flicked her wrist as though she were brushing something away. Then she started to get up, and I helped her. She plucked a large white flower from the Queen of the Night plant and handed it to me. "Kua nande kuve," she said, and then inched her way down the path. I spread open the petals and found inside another flower forming, a smaller flower, tender still and curled up in itself. I pressed my nose into the flower and inhaled its sweet, musky scent.